regardless of the outside pressures,
Right.
our people many times along the way stop fulfilling their responsibility. And when you dish that off to a chief, or you dish that off to a counselor, or you dish that off to a president, and then you don't step up, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And so, and I'm not dismissing the history, but I'm saying if you look at where we're at now, what really has to happen in all of our territories is the people have to start to step up. The people have to assert themselves into the process. I don't mean the political process. I see real governance.
Yes.
Is not what a political administration does.
No.
Real governance is what happens in our communities.
It's like what Ed is talking about is that if we're ignorant about our past, how do we know how to deal with today? The same things are being done to us over and over and over, and we just keep going along with it. It's because we don't know where we come from. We don't know the path that through the generations where our people started from, and that's why we're in the boat that we're in. I mean, it's not to say we're all ignorant of this, but the thing is, as people, we have become ignorant, and that's very, very sad.
Well, and when you look at how many generations have been under some of this really bad influence, and again, this goes back quite some time. When you look at how many generations, it begs the question: where are the best sources for trying to clean this thing up?
I just wanted to say that, in the very least, our people had to at least start asking the questions. Nobody has to actually, pick up the reins and start running the whole thing, but at least ask questions of the politicians and have them explain some of those things that they're doing, and just try to be more, like you said, be more participatory in that whole system.
Well, it's not their will; it is the will of the people that has to be served.
There's the 5 W's. I mean, when we were in elementary school, they told us about the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why.
Yep.
And the thing is that in our culture, that's what was always there: the who, what, when, where, and why. And the thing is, it was encouraging. It was encouraging the young people to think.
Not what to think, but how to think.
That's right.
And you're going to think and you're going to learn by questioning.
There's also the reality that the way of the Haudenosaunee was that if you didn't agree with something, you didn't vote no, you just didn't vote. By not voting, that was a vote for no. But you'll find that the official count for the first election, it barely had 36 people in there. Why? Because most people didn't vote because they didn't agree with it. That was the traditional way of saying no back, we're talking 180 years ago.
That's because you're not being of consensus then.
Well,
But no,
and
that's saying that the U.S. way is the way that they're going to go. And that's what I'm saying, is the U.S. came along and said, this is the way it's being done. Those people voted yes, there was no one voting against it, so therefore it was passed.
You see, they create this catch-22. Our way, if you didn't want to go, we say, you tat the city wash, that you're not going to give this issue of any importance. So you just say, I'm not going to participate in that. But on the outside, they say silence is consent. And but yet, for us, silence is not consent. Our silence is that, hey, we don't want nothing to do with this. This is not ours. It doesn't work for us. I'm not going to participate in this. And but now they keep pushing this, that we need to participate in order to have our voice heard. But the thing is that a lot of us, we don't participate because we don't want to be a part of that system. So they're telling us that if we want our voice to be heard, we have to become a part of that system. And so the thing is, we get out of the canoe and we get in the ship.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs, this is what the standard that the Bureau of Indian Affairs had for elections on a native territory. They needed the majority of 30% of the population, of the adult population. So they only needed 30% of the adult population to participate in a referendum. And then they only needed a majority of that. So they only needed 16% of the population to be a part of that's the requirement. That's how little.
And that didn't include the women.
No.
It did.
No, not especially in the beginning. Look, we're past our break time again. We're going to take another break here. This is John Kane. Let's Talk Native. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for coming back. This is John Kane, and this is Let's Talk Native. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here now before we get into the last segment. It's almost like an obligation once a year we head into the 3-day weekend associated with Columbus Day, and so we got to explain a little bit about who Columbus was. For those who don't know, I'm sure when you were a little kid and you were, taught that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue and discovered America, because apparently America was lost, and he discovered Indians. And of course, we know that's not true. Let's do away with your childhood education and bring a little bit of what's real. We live in a world today where we always hear about the global economy. I mean, if you go to university, I mean, even the ones here at Uville and UB, Buff State, I always hear them, we need to prepare our young people for the global economy. Well, I'll tell you what the global economy is. The global economy is where you have a few people who, in one area of the globe, create a useless market for stuff, and then in other areas of the globe, you exploit people, you exploit land, you exploit resources, and you make the stuff that oftentimes is just crap that the people in the consumer part of the globe don't really need. Then you find another part of the globe that you can dump all the waste from that crap. And in the meantime, you have very, very wealthy people who control which people will be exploited, which people will be marketed to, and which people will have the stuff dumped on them. That's the global economy. Now let's go back, to Christopher Columbus. What was his mission? Well, Christopher Columbus had this idea that he could find a cheaper way for him to cut out the trade that took place in order to get the goods from India to the marketplace of Europe. So his whole plan was, I'm going to defy what everybody else thinks, because I think we can cut across the water here and we can get to India, so I can get these cheap goods back to the and that's globalism. So what happens? His miscalculation about the size of the earth we live on finds him on the shores of a native people, the Arawak in the Taino, in what they call the Isle of Espanol. And when he first got there, his first impression of the people, he thought that it was like paradise, and he thought the people were like super beings. He talked about the size of these people. For one thing, Europeans were pretty small, and native people were, on average, even in these islands, they were about 5 to 6 inches taller on average, and sometimes a foot taller than the Europeans. The Europeans were these stocky kind of, crude-looking people with a lot of hair, and then they looked at these people living in paradise with beautiful skin and with beautiful features and with long, lanky bodies and more physical, a much more beautiful physical characters. This is the stuff he wrote in his log. But he wasn't in India, and then he noticed that some of these people had gold, and so he had in his mind, the hell with India. There's gold in them there hills. So this is what Columbus did. He went about enslaving these people, and in the very next breath, he started referring to these people as animals, and he put them into slavery. They used dogs to attack these people. They used the most brutal types of warfare you could ever imagine. He forced women and children, men, women, and children. Each day they had to come before him and give him a tribute of gold, so he could justify his voyage, and he could take this wealth back to Spain, where he could live in luxury in Europe. And if they didn't have their tribute, he would cut off a finger, he would cut off a hand, and if they were vocal about it, he'd cut out their tongues. This is what Christopher Columbus was about. This adventurous spirit that I've heard people try to use to describe Christopher Columbus. This guy was not a decent guy, and he represents the worst of humanity. And the fact of the matter is, his own men, because keep in mind that Christopher Columbus wasn't a Spaniard, So he had his own problems amongst his much of his Spanish crew and his Spanish benefactors. He actually went back to Europe in chains. He was so disliked by his own people that he actually had to return to Europe in chains. He never got the fame and fortune that he thought his trip deserved. But he opened up the door to the rape and the pillage and plunder of much of South America and Central America by the Spanish, and frankly even the lower part of what we call Turtle Island, our part of North America. And this is what Christopher Columbus opened the door to. So it's impossible for a native person to not be offended by the mere existence of Christopher Columbus, let alone the celebration of Christopher Columbus. I had somebody text me on Facebook today, and they said, "How strong is the movement to do away with Columbus Day?" And I said, "Do away with Columbus Day? The capital of the United States is named after him. Many cities in the United States are named after Columbia, Columbus. I mean, there's again District of Columbia. They're never going to do away with that holiday. So it's on us to continue to educate not just our children. I mean, I know one of the things that happened in was it the state of Arizona, Matt, where the